All right, everyone. Welcome to our second breakout live stream session. We've got Jeff Paul today, who many of you probably know from Turbine. Jeff's an advocate for Solana's decentralized ecosystem, co-founder of Turbine. He's helped train Solana developers through their workshops and cohorts. Jeff brings an infectious energy to this breakout hackathon. Today, he's here to share some insights on the hackathon mindset, embracing creativity, collaboration, and experimentation to drive new projects. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our friend Jeff, and we can get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Can you hear me all right? Just making sure. Sound check, sound check. Hey, everyone. I'm Jeff, CEO, co-founder at Turbine. Really excited to be here. What Mike didn't say is that he is a graduate of one of our programs, actually multiple programs, and has built a few things with us and done some stuff. I will never forget the cohort he came in was kind of that great draft class with him and Andre and Johnny. I mean, they all came in and they're all working, really meaningfully across Solana, which is, that is our goal as an organization, is to help people find their path. And for a lot of people, finding your path includes being part of a hackathon. So want to give you a little bit about my background real quick. A hackathon got me into this industry. I was an old teacher and ball coach for 30 years and decided I wanted to do something different and discovered this industry and joined a hackathon, the Chainlink hackathon back in the day. I wanted to build something. I had an idea. I remember I was driving home from football practice one day and I had an idea. I'm like, oh, that's super, because that was the thing. I'm like, I want to get into crypto, but I don't have ideas. I'm just, an old teacher and coach and, build and run schools. I'm not, I can't build a product. But then I thought of an idea, and the idea came off of, I'm a big football guy, American football guy. And I'm like, hey, there's this game in American football at the Super Bowl where people kind of bet on the scores each quarter between the two teams. I'm like, what if you did that and applied it to, the crypto prices for, top 10 assets at the time. So I started playing with this idea in my head. I'm like, I think this could be good. And that's really what happened. Like, something from my life gave me an idea that I could turn into something fun for people to do on chain. And so I just started looking for people to help me build it. Started going into Discord groups, never been in Discord before, and just started trying to find people and talking to people and trying to find a couple of guys that could help me build this thing, because I was new. I mean, I knew a little Solidity. I was teaching myself. Don't do that anymore. Don't play with Solidity anymore. I've learned. But we built this thing and we started social media, and I started connecting with Patrick Collins, and we made a name and we built this product, and it was great. It had a beautiful front end and we had a great deck and we did everything right, except at the end we learned that your test-matic on Aave is different than your test-matic elsewhere. So our product didn't work. We still got recognized. We won a little bit of money. We got a grant afterwards from Polygon to keep building, but it fizzled out. But it was enough to get me to want to keep doing more. And it led, the part of our product was to contribute a piece of the winnings to charity. So I reached out to blockchain charity groups and just started connecting with people and made some friends on Terra that we were going to donate some money to, Angel Protocol. And the founder of Angel Protocol became one of my co-founders back in the day of what was Terra Builders Alliance, which became Web3 Builders Alliance, which became Solana Turbine. And it all came back from that first Chainlink hackathon, where I had an idea driving down the road of something that I thought would be fun, that was connected to my life, met some people in a Discord, never used Discord before, went out of my comfort zone, built this thing, endured the disappointment of really being our mistake in maybe not winning more, but won a little money and managed a team and tried to figure it out and do BD and all that stuff you don't think you're going to need to be able to have to do. And even though the product died, it led to relationships with other people that have me still sitting here today, 4 years later, still working in this industry and doing something I really love to do. So winning a hackathon isn't just getting your name announced, 2 weeks after May 16th. What do you do after that? What's the story lead to? My story's led me here. If I don't do that Chainlink hackathon, I'm not sitting here right now. So I share that story because it's relevant. There's a lot of different ways you could win here. So don't count it all as one way of winning. So just real quickly about Turbine, had to, share a little bit of numbers. We're in our 14th cohort, 150 grads or hold jobs, 30 founder tooling and projects funded, over 50 hackathon winners in various hackathons. We employ 15 of our graduates. This past cohort, we had over 1,000 applicants for 4 main programs and 2 auxiliary, and so on. So, if live remote social learning is interesting to you, just come and give us a try. That's all I need to say about that. But, look, this all exists because I was in a hackathon. Okay? I didn't win the Chainlink hackathon, but I'll bet you of the people that did win, I might be doing better than a lot of them because my project is still alive 3.5 years later. So I call it the gas mindset: growth, abundance, and service. There's a lot of different mindsets you could have, and no one is wrong as long as it motivates you to keep going and to keep finding a way. This is mine. If I'm better today than I was yesterday, it doesn't matter. Like yesterday was a rough day for me. Today, I, had Max Resnick on a call working with the Magic Block guys, and I'm doing this. Okay? I'm winning today. It's a better day today, but I wake up tomorrow and it's a clean slate. I got to try to do better. In our minds, we've never made it and we don't want to ever make it because we want to wake up every day and work at this thing like we have nothing. Because as soon as you feel like you got something, complacency sets in. And in the startup world, complacency is death. Abundance. And I'm going to talk about abundance a little bit later when I talk about cheesesteaks. Yes, because cheesesteaks are important in the hackathon. I know that sounds weird, but it is in fact true. But abundance is, we're all eating from a small pie now. You've got to go about this thing like this pie is going to get infinitely larger. And the key there is relationships matter. Partner with people, talk with people, network with people, connect with people. Even if it's a group of people you think you're competing against, the reality is that you're both on the same team trying to get more users to use this technology. Okay, that's the real competition here, folks. Like, there's people that have friendly competition on Solana, but at the end of the day, Solana is what it is because of the galvanized resilience that the developer community has demonstrated time and time again in the face of, challenges. I get asked a lot in my role to go to other ecosystems and replicate what we've done at Turbine for other chains. And I say, well, that's not possible because Solana is unique. And they're like, well, how can we replicate the Solana developer community? I said, well, I'll tell you what, have transcended technology, great leadership, and a developer community that even in the face of outages, constant FUD, and the main, liquidity exchange on your chain going belly up because the founder was a crook, and have everybody still want to work together and resolve through it. Like, you cannot orchestrate those things. That's what Solana has to its advantage over any other chain. And I've worked on a few. is the developer community is, at the end of the day, we're all here for each other, even when we compete with each other. Because the prize is not really what's currently on Solana, it's what's coming. And we feel like we could all have an abundance mindset and everybody can eat. When I talk about service, and my business is a service industry. It is a service business. So I don't think this is going to resonate with everybody, but I do think it's important to say, we believe that if we provide a lot of service and a lot of impact, that people will figure out a way to pay us to stick around. Okay. Our business is not selling a product or collecting fees. That's not our business. Our business is being of service and creating an impact where it's needed. And, we always put that first and believe that we'll be able to stay in business. And so far it's worked. It's not easy. And sometimes we have to put business ahead of everything to try to keep the lights on when the market is down, because market conditions affect everybody, even us. So this is my mindset. It's helpful for you to think about what your mindset is here. And, it's also helpful to write it down and remind yourself when things are hard, what are you here for? What are you really here for? So let me shift gears a little bit into actually, what you're doing. Guys are building products for users. Okay. This hackathon is a product competition. And product competitions, the winner is going to be the one that can draw and retain users who spend money to use the products. And the reason I put this slide first is, and this is something we're a technical program. We do all technical stuff at Turbine and research, but we still tell our people every single day, don't forget the user. Don't get so deep in the weeds of your tech and doing cool things and writing ZK circuits with Circom and doing this, that, and the other thing. That's fun and it's cool. But if it's not going to bring users to a product, you got to ask yourself why you're doing it. For this hackathon, there's lots of reasons to do it. But for this hackathon, build a product that's going to bring users. That's what Solana needs. That's what this industry needs. And that's what, this hackathon is about. What products are going to bring and retain users? How's it going to do that? Where is it going to do that? What's it going to do that's going to do that? I use a simple strategy every time I have a new concept, and that is the 5W how. Where, when, who, what, why, and how. I'll ask those questions about everything. It's simple. It's easy. If you have a product that you're building, do a 5W how about it. It will actually help you with your pitch deck. It will help you tell your story. It will make sure you're hitting audiences. You got to remember, you got to present this to an audience of potential users and investors. So answering those questions about your product, rather than just sitting down and blindly trying to write a narrative, it will help give you an outline of what you need to share. What is it? Where is it going to live? Why is it important? Who does it impact? The when question is, what's historical context of products like this, either in blockchain or in the legacy world, that have had success, and make a friendly comparison? How does it work? How does it, impact and attract users? Use that test. It's super simple. 5 W's and a how about your product. And it will give you an organized narrative for any pitch. And know who your users are. Users is not a generic, all the people on the planet. And again, I'm going to talk about cheesesteaks later, and it's relevant. Who are your users? Who are the people? What's the persona of the person who's going to use your product? How do you target your pitching, your narrative, and your product and your UI to that audience? What's your purpose? What's your audience? What's your product? Who are your users? Okay, little perspective. Obviously, it's been established that I'm a sports guy. Having your name announced at the end of this competition is like getting a scholarship to play college sports. There's going to be more than 10,000 people that register for this competition. There'll probably be about 2,000 projects submitted. 30 will get their names called as winners. Okay? Some of you might. Most won't. That's the numbers. Everybody should be in love with his or her product and project and believe you're going to win. But you got to realize it's a subjective competition, and the overwhelming 99% won't win. It doesn't mean that you didn't win in another form. Okay? So define what winning means to you. Because if the only way winning is defined for you is by winning $50,000 and getting into an accelerator, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. Number one, if you ship, you won. If you ship a product on May 16th with a deck and a walkthrough, and you send it and you make a Twitter account and you start hyping it up and you get 100 followers or whatever, if you make a Discord and people come in and want to know about your product, if you start getting scammy DMs saying, when token, let me pump it, even though you don't answer to those, that's still winning. Okay? Anything you can take away and be better for the next time or continue building your project, that's winning. You've got to make sure that you have a couple different ways that you're going to define success here, because only 30 teams are going to get their names called. And guess what? A lot of teams don't get their names called that do better than the teams that do. All right. As much as there's a long list of successful hackathon projects that win and go on to be mainnet, there's just as many that don't win and continue and hit mainnet and do well. So this is the perspective you need to remind yourselves of. And I share this with you because I'm an old guy. I've learned how to define success and failure in different ways that are healthier for me to be able to keep going and wake up tomorrow and try to be better. I don't get paralyzed when something doesn't go my way. And if you're in this industry for the long term, you can't get paralyzed by what appears to you to be failure. Don't spend the week after the announcement of who wins and so on. If you don't win, don't spend a week looking at who won and saying, I'm better than them. That's a waste of your time. Keep building your product. Refine it. Make it better. Or take a breath and reflect and then go and build. That's how you keep going here. That's the nature of this industry. Okay. Let me look at the chat, see if there's any questions here. Any questions coming in? Hold on. Any questions?
No, nothing yet, but if anybody has one, feel free to jump in and put it in the chat.
Okay. So you got to kind of make a plan here. All right. And I know a lot of people are thinking about their product. Some are just thinking about, how do I make Anchor work? Some of you are like, oh my gosh, Anchor just got updated and now everything that worked yesterday doesn't work today. We tell our people on day one of our cohorts, writing Anchor, the rust is not the hardest part. The hardest part is keeping your environment running, keeping your dependencies playing nicely with each other, and then writing tests at the end. Writing tests at the end will take you longer than writing your Anchor programs. Do not be surprised by that. Okay? You got to be ready. Don't say, oh, testing, and leave a day. It's going to take longer. Now, if your Anchor and or your tests don't work, that's still okay, because this is not a competition on whose tech works the best. This is more of a who has the best product that has the best upside. And another part of it is who has a team that gives the judges confidence that they're going to be able to continue to build good stuff. I know hackathon winning teams that go into accelerators and they completely change their product because they won because of their team. Okay, so I'm seeing some questions now. The first one, what if my product is more AI than Solana? Of course. Yeah. I mean, these AI, if you build an AI product, that's great. I mean, that's huge. I think that's fine. Yeah. I mean, we use Anchor because that's our program. We don't necessarily, teach to the test. Like we don't host these cohorts just to ship 100 projects to the hackathon. I mean, we'll ship over 100 projects from Turbine builders, but we're in that program in particular is an Anchor program. We also have a Pinocchio program and an SVM and so on. But no, it does not have to use Anchor. Absolutely not. And then I see another question. What should be the goal of our project, to bring user in the blockchain ecosystem or bring user to your product? The answer is yes, both. Look, the space is growing. There are projects that are targeting existing users, existing people, native crypto people. There's a certain flavor of that kind of product, and that's a great product. But products that bring new users and thus have a more smooth user experience and onboarding process, those are likewise very appealing. At the end of the day, the judge is going to look at what do I think is going to work and draw users, retain users, and make money. That's what it's about. This is, people are looking to invest in people and products that will give them a return on investment. So look, Jay Moon, the question is, what if a product is mostly done but needs help to adapt to the masses? That is user testing. Start asking your friends and family, would you use this? And listen to what they say. Anytime you ask somebody to look at your work and they ask you a question about your product or about using it, first of all, their question is going to be in the form of a 5W how question. That's just inevitable. Your response to the question should become part of your solution. So if you ask me, Jeff, Benevolent Moon, which was the name of my project on Polygon, what if, one of the tokens that you were allowed to bet on at the time for my project was Luna, obviously not one that people would bet on now. Jeff, what happens if Luna goes under? Whatever my answer to that question is from my user is anybody but me. Okay, anybody you ask except for you is a user that's giving you feedback. If they say, well, what happens if one of these tokens bellies up? Well, I would run a DAO governance to choose the next token. Boom. A question just forced me to think about how to make my product more user-friendly. I take those words that came out of my mouth in response and I add that to my roadmap. Okay. So have a roadmap and have specific milestones on your roadmap that wherever you end up on May 16th, everything else on your deck is future. I'll get to the judging process in a minute, but the judging process is, look, they've got a lot of people with a lot of experience and a lot of different lenses that look at these projects. I would say this, just like any investor is going to look at thousands of decks a year, you have 10 seconds in your pitch deck to keep their attention or lose it. You have 10 seconds in a video to keep their attention or lose it. So make sure you get to the point, you keep it engaging, and very quickly you are showing the strongest thing in your presentation, whether that's a cool front end, some cool numbers you think you're going to generate, who your team is. Put your best thing right up front because you want them to continue to click all the way to the end of your presentation. You want them to watch the whole demo video. Don't make your video more than 2 minutes. They won't watch it. Okay? Don't be like, oh, it's 3, but I didn't want to cut anything. Cut something. Because you're going to lose their interest. They've got a lot of people to look at. When I look at resumes for people to help them find jobs or to bring people into Turbine, I don't look at many resumes more than halfway down the page. You either have me or you don't. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me actually stop there. So I'm going to stop at Bobby. I'm going to keep going because I might address some of these. So, your requirements for this hackathon is you get to submit a deck, a video, and your repo. Make sure your deck is easy to navigate. Make sure it's neat and clean. Make sure that it's easy. It should be more easy to read than pretty to look at first. Don't put a lot of words on a page. And your demo should not be reading your slides while posting them in a video. Okay? Think creatively about how to capture people's attention with your video. So your video and your deck should not be exactly the same. Okay? That's important. Make sure there's some variance there, because that shows creativity, it shows some professionalism, but it also shows that you're respecting that the judges know how to read and can read a deck, and you don't have to make a video reading it to them. And make sure your repo is open. I mean, you can keep it private and send them the link, but now you're asking judges, again, who are going to be looking at tons and tons of submissions, to click a couple extra clicks. It's just better to have it open. And you don't want Noah from Helium posting about it on Twitter saying open your repos, because there's a good chance you won't get seen if your repo is private. Okay. So that's the other thing is, take the time to put a good README on your repo. A good README, look at some nice ones. Go look at some of the ANZA READMEs. Go look at some of the professional, successful GitHub repositories. Put a good README. Because you know what? If they get to your GitHub, they're not going to get to everyone's GitHub. I mean, if they look at your deck and they don't like it, they're not watching your video or looking at your repo. If they like your deck, they'll watch the video. If they like the deck and the video, they might look at the repo. But a small percentage of these judges are going to be technical enough to be able to look through and say, this is good tech. It's not what they do. All right. They care about the tech. I don't want to dismiss that. But if they get to your repo, that's a really good thing. Make sure it closes the deal, not slams the door. Okay. All right. Let me continue here. All right. Very underappreciated component. You hear about PMF, which is product market fit. FMF is founder market fit. The slide that you have in your deck that talks about the founders should in some way say to the viewer, to the judge, these founders fit this market, and I can see these founders taking this to 3 to 5 years from now and being successful. Our elites program, in order to get in, you've got to understand that if all goes right, this is a 3 to 5 year commitment. If you guys win and you do well, for this to really happen for you, it's a 3 to 5 year commitment. Okay, so you've got to show, hey, I've been with this. I'm building, a DPIN product, and I've been working on FPGAs for 5 years at the same company. That's good. That's saying something. So make sure that you demonstrate who you are in a way that says, this is who I am. Oh, and by the way, who I am fits this market and this product well. So that's important. Let me check a couple of these other questions here. So we say hackathon season just to mean, anytime there's a hackathon going on, a big one, it's hackathon season. People are building for a competition. And then we have, how do you know if an idea is good? Ask people. Ask people. Ask your family. Ask your friends. Go into Discords. Ask people. What things can you do to make your submission immediately stand out to the judges? Adam, if I knew the answer to that, it depends. Different things are going to stand out to different judges. It's so subjective. Candidly, does this thing have a chance to make money realistically sooner rather than later? And is this a team that I think is going to hang around and make it happen? I mean, those two things tend to do well as far as keeping attention. You could join a hackathon regardless of your skill set. If you go into Coliseum, you could hunt for teams that need your kinds of skills. It's not just tech people. Our teams that we just built for one of our programs, we made sure there's researchers and content creators on every team so that we can make sure that these are well-rounded teams to be successful. Okay, so Kuka, I'll give you that stuff at the end. Okay, so founder market fit, very important. Make sure you demonstrate how you as a founder fit the market. So, I just mentioned there's other important roles. So research matters. Do your research with your product as far as its potential. So you should know what these terms are. These are the three big concepts that you should have in your deck, because these are business metrics to try to predict the potential return on investment for investing in your project. Go look them up. Go look up models. Go look up how these things work. TAM, Dow, and Kaggle. Go look them up. Okay? They're very important. If you put them, how can you stand out? Have a slide that shows these three things on it. You're immediately demonstrating that you know what you're talking about. Okay? All right, I already mentioned this. 10-second rule. You have 10 seconds to get their attention. And product potential and return on investment potential that's obvious and stated is going to capture attention faster than look at my great tech. Okay? This is important. Tech matters, but there's a lot of good tech in Solana. There's a lot of people that can build good tech. We're looking for good product and application ideas that can bring a lot more users on chain, generate a lot more revenue, and provide a return on investment for people supporting these. Okay, so I mentioned this before. What do 64 cheesesteaks and Claremont Ethiopian food have to do with a hackathon? And this is, I want you all to be, really attentive to this narrative here. So I'm from Philadelphia in the U.S., and in Philly, the cultural food is the cheesesteak. Most people have heard of a Philly cheesesteak. It's a pretty global concept. And where I live here, north of Atlanta, there's a mall, there's a strip of stores where there are 5 Ethiopian restaurants all next to each other in the same little area. Okay. In Philly, they have this sports bracket, tournament bracket with 64 cheesesteaks restaurants competing for the best cheesesteak in the city. And the reason I share these two things is there are 64 teams, 64 cheesesteak restaurants in Philly. There's a lot more than that. There's 64 top cheesesteak places in the city. 64 different places that figured out how to throw a piece of meat on a piece of bread with some cheese. They're all busy. Always. Lines around the block. All these places are in business. They're busy. They're doing well. They're successful. The 5 Ethiopian restaurants at Claremont and Briarcliff, all busy, all the time. Why do I share this? Don't find out that someone else is building something similar and say, I'm not going to build it because they're doing it. That's the wrong mindset. Okay? First of all, it's validation. If other teams are building something similar, it validates your idea. And don't immediately say, oh, they're better than me. They've been around longer. That doesn't mean anything. Build your project, build a product, find your users, and continue to listen to your users and deliver to them. Because what you can control is how good is your service. Why do I go to one cheesesteak place over another when I visit? Because it's easier and faster for me to get what I want. Is it the best cheesesteak in the city? Maybe, maybe not. But I value other things as a user that maybe other people don't value. Why do I go to one Ethiopian restaurant over another when I go to this little area? I particularly like the vegetarian dishes. And one of the places does the vegetarian dishes better. As a user, I have a preference. I know which one has my preference. I still eat at the other ones once in a while when I want something different. Okay? I still go to different cheesesteak places in the city, but I do have my favorite. I still look at Lulo and Margin Fi and Save, but I use Camino mostly. So don't worry if someone else is doing something you think is similar. Find your users, serve your users, and see what happens. And give good service. Okay. So it's, don't let it have the opposite effect. Okay. A little bit of strategy. You've got about 3 weeks until the hackathon submissions. You're going to want to spend at least the last 10 days, not entirely, but you want to spend time the last 10 days making sure you have your deck and your pitch done. What you don't want is to be re-recording your video at 11:58 on the 15th. Okay? Put time into it. Because remember, that's going to be the first things they see. The last thing they're going to see, if they see it, is your code. Make sure you put the time in to make that video and your pitch deck really good. And let a lot of people look at it. Let people give you feedback. There was a project a couple years ago that ended up not winning, but being a live mainnet project for a couple years. And their founder sent me his deck. And I said, this looks pretty, but I can't read half the writing because you used a fancy script. He's like, oh, but it looks cool. I'm like, I can't read it. Looking cool is nice. If I can't read it, I'm not reading. I'm not going to struggle trying to figure out what the words are because it's using some sort of, fancy font. All right. And he changed the font. So get feedback. And it doesn't have to only be your blockchain friends. Ask people that don't use crypto. What do you think of this? Is this interesting? Does this make sense to you? And listen to their feedback and apply whatever their feedback is into your narrative. Okay, so that's the first thing. Make sure you have a Twitter account set up for your project. And maybe a week before submission, start hyping it. Start tagging, projects that you think users of that product will also like yours. Start the hype train about a week before submission and make a plan to keep it going for 2 weeks after. Because that's when the judging is going to happen. Okay? A judge is not going to know to look at your Twitter before submissions. So you don't need to do crazy amounts there. But you want to get it going and get a couple people following you. ask your friends to follow you. But after, like, this is what we do. We 3 times a week, we have a plan to drop some sort of video or interesting content on the social for the projects. Whether it's, when we did a DPIN projects, it was using the DPIN to send a transaction that made a horn honk in traffic. Think of some creative marketing stuff that's fun to look at and drop stuff about 3, maybe 4 times a week in the 2 weeks between submission and when the judging happens. That way, if you do catch their eye and they want to go to your social and look at it, they'll see some good content. They'll say, okay, they have a plan. So, and look, like it or not, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, I'm old school. It's a powerful tool. Look at the projects you like, see how they use Twitter. Okay. There's this mythical email, an email from the Coliseum team that says they want to talk to you. Here's what it does and what it doesn't mean if you get that email. If in the 2 weeks after the hackathon submission, you get an email, it does not mean you won. So don't celebrate yet. But it does mean that you caught their eye and they're interested in learning more. If you get that email, make a comprehensive outline on what you would share about you, your team, and your product that is not simply repeating what your deck and video said. Maybe even talk about what you've done since you submitted. Okay? Next, if you do win, it's just getting started. Okay? I will tell you this from experience. Success and getting, recognition and getting money does not make life easier. It actually makes it much more complicated. And you got to be ready for that, because these judges are looking for teams of people that can handle the real hard part. Because making this for 6 or 7 weeks during the hackathon and shipping it is not the hard part in the long term. It's just the beginning. So be ready. If you win, don't go out and celebrate and, throw a party on a yacht. Preserve that runway. Also, prepare to pivot. Be ready. Don't, be in love with your product until you have to pivot, and then be willing to do what you need to do to keep it rolling. The other thing is, make sure you're aware of what a lot of money is and what a lot of money isn't. Okay? $100,000 is not a lot of money. Some of you are probably going, yeah, it is. $100,000 is not a lot of money. So do your research about what investing looks like, what cap tables look like. Do your research about, if you win, what's it going to look like? What's it going to look like when investors come to you and they want equity in your product in exchange for a certain, amount of money? Make sure you're aware of all of that. Otherwise, you're going to get blinded by what looks like a lot of money for you, and it may not be in the grand scheme of things. Okay? And then lastly, if you don't win, keep jamming. If you don't win, but everybody says they like your product, keep working on your product. If you don't win and people are like, I don't see that getting traction, come up with new ideas. Find other people to jam with. Look at the products on the submission list, because you could look at them, and try to find people that are interesting and products that are interesting, and reach out and say, hey, we both entered, neither of us won, but I really like your product. This is what I did. You want to connect? And just network. Okay. So I'm seeing a question here. We are building a Solana school in Brazil for Latam. Would be awesome to have a chat later. Yeah, definitely get in touch with me. Information, connect with mentors. Ping me later. I can connect you. Explain a little bit more about the deck. So your deck is your pitch deck. It is simply let me see if I'll pull a sample up of an old one that we did. Hang on one second. All right. So this is Mike probably remembers Cade. So this is a pitch deck of a gaming platform that we built. You could see last year. All right. So you could see, and by the way, this is not a great deck, but it at least will show you, the parts that I'm talking about. So, there you go. Fun matters. Opportunities. You could see, gamers, developers, investors. This right here comes directly from a user story. So we have our people write user stories. In other words, who are my different user personas and what is the story of how they'll experience our product? We do a lot of process. So we do user stories and architectural diagrams and things like that. But see, this is user story. Okay. There you go. There's the Tam, Kagger, and Dow. And then see now this is a terrible slide. It's hard to read, too much color, too many words. Okay. This slide should be earlier because it's about how you make money. Too busy. But the revenue streams. But this is the 8th slide. Revenue should be talked about in the first 3. Integrations, comparative, our team. Bad slide. Okay, so, but that's a pitch deck. And it's not a terrible pitch deck, but we've learned a lot in the last year about how to do that better. Okay. Yeah. So I'll give you, let me give you all my, hold on. There you go. This is my second to last slide. So, the most important thing here is enjoy the process. I mean, it's a grind, but if you don't love the energy and the chaos of this sprint to that shipping moment, you probably either the industry's not for you or it's not for you right now as a builder. Because what you're dealing with right now is every day for me for the last 4 years. I'm always in hackathon season because we're always building and shipping and listening to users and trying to be better. It's the way to survive in the startup world. I have this anecdote here from an old friend, a guy named Tom McKnight. And I taught and coached Tom's daughter, Tara. And Tara was, short, unathletic, walked on it, the University of Virginia women's basketball team, which was a top 5 basketball program at the time, and ended up making the team as a walk-on. She's kind of like, Mike, you'll appreciate this reference. She's called the Rudy of women's basketball. Like if you look up Tara McKnight, you'll find the Rudy of women's basketball. Anyway, Tom is a professional golfer. And, he always said, enjoy the process. Enjoy the process because just because you work your butt off and you do everything right doesn't mean you're going to make it, especially as an adult. There's no participation, ribbon in life. Just because you do everything right and work really hard and you're a really great person doesn't mean you're going to make it. There's some really crappy, lazy people that make it. Okay. So you might as well enjoy the process. Like I enjoy what I do every day. I gave up a 30-year career and it feels like a completely different person in a completely different lifetime since I did. So, learn from it, grow from it, and always be on to the next. We had a great day today at Turbine. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. How could I do better? It's the way the mind is. So this is all my contact information. Okay. So on Twitter and Telegram at JapperJam, Turbine's Twitter, Solana Turbine. If you want to apply, our old website is still up. We're in the middle of getting it all completely revamped, but you can apply there. Next program is in June. We actually have a lot of projects that win hackathons or do well in the hackathon that come to us afterwards to get upskilled on this on the tech side. Actually, TXTX that won last time, both their people have done our program since, and they've actually developed their surf pool tool in our SVM program. So, and if you win and you need talent, just let me know. Always have talented people to work. Why is it not a great pitch? If you're talking about the Cade deck, too busy. It doesn't talk about what judges want to see early enough, and the colors are awful. In a nutshell. So, give us a bit more advice on choosing teammates. If it's a regional product that is serving you region, obviously you want people that it's gonna resonate with. You want mission alignment. Mission alignment is really important. That's part of that founder market fit. TXTX, they're doing a workshop with you. They're doing one with us too. There you go. Bing. I love it. So Surf Pool that Mike just dropped, Luda and Makaya, that they're coming. They're going to talk about Surf Pool. Surf Pool, they built, Ludo built that in our SVM program. And the reason Ludo was in our SVM program is because Maddie from Coliseum introduced me to him in a Telegram and said, Ludo would really like to do the program. It's relationships, it's networking and people and being really good at what you do and really being a good person. The good guys are going to want to work with the good guys. All right. Bottom line, we love working with Maddie and the team at Coliseum. And of course, Mike, they're good guys. They're doing good, important work for the industry. So we're happy to support. When Mike asked me to do this, it was, I think I said yes before he even said what it was. This is what we do. The important thing is no matter what, the sun will rise tomorrow. Get up and build. When we were building on Terra, I'll leave you with this. When we were building on Terra, we closed a $2.2 million runway deal with LFG. LFG was like the Solana foundation of Terra on a Saturday night. The following Tuesday, UST lost its peg and that money became worthless. It was fleeting. But we're still here, because we have a mindset and we believe what we're doing. We have a lot of conviction for what we're doing and why. And that's why Lily Lube introduced us to Chase, and that's why we've been on Solana for 2.5 years. Just bring it. So that brings me to my hour. Woo, almost. Mike, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. You all have my contact information, however I can be of service to y'all. And just wishing you a lot of luck and don't worry about sleeping during the hackathon. Take a nap the weekend after. It's overrated. Mike, you're muted or I can't hear you.
Oh, no, that was me. Sorry. Jeff, just wanted to say thanks. That was a lot of great insights. Hopefully there's a lot to take away. We cover a lot. And if people have questions following up, they can just hit you on Twitter. I'm sure you'd be happy to help. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Awesome.